While JFK is definitely still recovering on the long haul side of things due to the pandemic, the short haul and domestic side of the airport is definitely still bustling, and we will definitely show that in today's update. Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be doing yet another airport update of New York John F. Kennedy International Airport. Now I apologise for the fact that it's been a really long time since I did the last one of these, but I had to build the new airport. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy, and let's get straight into it. So first up here we have this Aeromexico 787-9 in the beautiful Quetzalcoatl livery. This aircraft is just getting catered and loaded up for a flight back out to Mexico City, which is also where it came in from roughly around 2 hours ago. This aircraft is set to head back out there in roughly around an hour and a half's time once the cleaning crew is off and all the baggage is on board. The passengers still need to be loaded on, and then the aircraft can detach its jetways, push back and head out to Mexico City. Right here we have this Cathay Pacific 777-300ER in the One World livery. As you can see, this aircraft is in a very similar state to the Aeromexico aircraft we saw earlier. This aircraft is just getting some passengers loaded on and some bags loaded on before it will be making a flight out to Hong Kong. This aircraft is set to make that flight out to Hong Kong in roughly around 30 minutes time, after coming in from there roughly around 2 hours ago. And next up here we have this beautiful KLM 787-9, which has just arrived in from Amsterdam Schiphol. This aircraft came in roughly around 30 minutes ago and is set to head back out there in roughly around 4 hours time once it's completed all of its turnaround services. As you can see, the aircraft is just getting some new fuel on board and getting some of its old bags loaded off before it can make that return flight out to Amsterdam. And then right here, just about to push back, we have this Singapore Airlines Airbus A380-800. This aircraft is running a little bit behind schedule at the moment. As you can see, some of the bags are still lingering around the aircraft. But this aircraft came in from Singapore roughly around 4 hours ago and is set to head out very soon, as I said earlier. But this aircraft is still having some bags loaded on, and the cleaners are still on board, just finishing up and rounding off these services. Now it's time to make a swift transition to the domestic side of things on the airport, to see how Delta is operating during these times of need. Now just before we actually get to the Delta terminal, we are greeted by this Delta 757-200, which has just pushed back from its gate here at the Delta terminal for a flight out to Salt Lake City. As you can see, this aircraft is now taxiing towards the runway and will be making its flight out to Salt Lake City very shortly. It arrived in from there roughly around 2.5 hours ago. It had a little oil leak in one of the engines, so it had to stay a little bit longer, so it's about 45 minutes delayed at the moment. And then right here we have this Delta 737-800 in the SkyTeam livery. This aircraft has just come in from Las Vegas roughly around 30 minutes ago. As you can see, the cleaners are on board and the baggage is getting loaded off for the return flight out to Las Vegas. This aircraft is mid turnaround. As you can see, some of the passengers are just getting loaded on for that return flight. It'll be departing in roughly around 25 minutes time. And then next out for pushback here we have this Delta CRJ-700, which is set to head out to Buffalo, New York. This aircraft arrived in from Raleigh-Durham roughly around 35 minutes ago, and as you can see, it's just rounding off its turnaround process. You can see the fuel truck just pulling away from the aircraft. This aircraft is set to head out to Buffalo in roughly around 10 minutes time, but it's just finished ahead of schedule, so it'll be pushing back in roughly around 5 minutes time for its departure out to Buffalo, New York. And then right here we have another Delta 737-800, this time in the regular livery. This aircraft came in from Orlando roughly around an hour ago and is set to head out to Tampa in roughly around 15 minutes time. This aircraft has a longer turnaround than the other 737 at the airport today, purely because of its slot being later in the afternoon. This aircraft, as you can see, is just getting some of its bags loaded on and is still getting refueled. The passengers are about to start boarding before the aircraft will head out to Tampa, Florida. And right here we have the largest Delta aircraft at the airport today. This is the Delta 767-300, which has just arrived in from Barcelona, Spain. This aircraft arrived roughly around 30 minutes ago and will be heading out to Los Angeles in roughly around an hour and a half time. This aircraft is running a pretty quick turnaround, so I doubt it will be able to leave on time, but as you can see, the cleaners are now on board. The bags are still being loaded off from the previous flight, and some new catering is being loaded on. Hopefully this aircraft can leave on time for its flight out to the beautiful state of California. And then right here we have this Boeing Delta 717, which has just arrived in from Tampa. This aircraft is set to head out to Jacksonville, Florida in roughly around 35 minutes time, after arriving, as I said, in from Tampa roughly around 20 minutes ago. As you can see, some of the bags are still being loaded on for the next flight. The aircraft isn't ready yet for passengers to board, but the aircraft is now being refueled for its flight back out to Florida. And then here, operating the day's Washington flights, we have this Delta CRJ-700, which came in from Washington National Airport roughly around 45 minutes ago. This aircraft is set to head back out to Washington, but this time to Washington Dulles. And as you can see, this aircraft is now being bagged up and fueled up for its return flight. Passengers are now boarding, and hopefully the boarding part of their flight can be finished very soon for its pushback out to Washington. And then right here for the final Delta aircraft at the terminal today, we have this Delta A321, which is going to be operating the Atlanta route today. This aircraft came in from there roughly around an hour ago, and is running behind schedule, as you can see, still getting bags loaded on for its return flight, which was scheduled to be in around 5 minutes time, but as you can tell, it will not be making that return flight. This aircraft is probably set to head out within the next 30 minutes for its flight back out to Atlanta. Now that's going to conclude the Delta operations at the airport today, so now let's go have a look and see what's going on over at the hard stands and taxiways of the airport. Now making its very first appearance at this JFK model airport, we have this beautiful UPS 747-8, which as you can see is just getting loaded up for a flight out to Leipzig. This aircraft will be departing out there in roughly around 4.5 hours time, after arriving in from Louisville roughly around 3 hours ago. This aircraft is still getting some of its cargo deloaded, and then it will start the second half of its turnaround before it will be heading out to Leipzig in the late evening. Then right here, just taxiing in from Houston, we have this JetBlue A321neo. This aircraft touched down roughly around 2 minutes ago and is just making its way over to Terminal 5. This aircraft will probably be having a longer turnaround as it is a little bit off schedule, and after it's done with its 2.5 hour turnaround, it'll be heading over to Denver, Colorado. And then for the very final aircraft at this airport today, we have the beautiful British Airways 777-200, which is just making its way onto runway 31 left for a departure out to London Heathrow, of course. That is also where it came in from roughly around 5 hours ago, and it had a long turnaround at Terminal 1 here at JFK before making its turnaround out to where you see it now. So yeah, that's going to conclude this airport update. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Please consider subscribing for more content like this, and definitely let me know what you think of the new airport, because it took a lot of work and man hours. If you want to see how I built it, I will leave a link in the description below. I have a small build series. So yeah, it's been Aviation JFK signing off.